Everyone has their own personal best doctor list. A lot of people seem to think your favorite doctor says a lot about you, but I personally think they all fucking rock, and just because Jodie is at the bottom of my list doesn't mean that she sucks at all, just that her showrunner did. I don't think your favorite doctor says much about you so long as you love the show and understand it. But if you want my list, well, too bad. I'm not giving that away for free, and I may need content down the road. But I will give you my top 2. Capaldi is my number 1 because...
Listen to me, Richard fucking Stilwell, you fucking jazzy bastard. Jesus Christ.
As the Doctor is probably the greatest thing that will ever happen in my lifetime, and because Capaldi can act the socks off just about anything. My second, though, is Tom Baker. So I am in luck today, because we're watching a story some people rank higher than Genesis of the Daleks, and those people are morons. But nonetheless, this episode is very popular. It aired at the height of Tom Baker's popularity as the Doctor, and is one of the highest rated stories in its over 60-year history. Let's tackle City of Death. We open on a barren wasteland with this spaceship that looks like a spider getting ready to take off. We're supposed to think it's some other planet, but spoilers, it's Earth. It just looks like it's gonna look whenever global warming gets done with us. Green spaghetti eyeball face here is Scaroth, and he's in charge of the warp drive, and the fate of the Jaggeroth are in his hands. But he's not quite so sure that they're about to try is gonna work.
I can't change the laws of physics. I got to have 30 minutes.
Turns out he's right, it doesn't, but it does do some weird shit to him. Later, much later, the Doctor and Romana are visiting Paris 1979 and describe my videos to each other.
Marvelous.
Marvelous. Absolutely.
Absolutely marvelous.
They also around Paris for a bit, and when I say a bit, I mean they around forever. Meanwhile, Count Scarlioni and this slightly offensive stereotype scientist talk about money because shit's getting tight. Count Scarlioni is this fella who's dressed like he's welcoming you to Fantasy Island. He's rich, has a bunch of priceless artwork, is doing experiments, and has a Hordor. So things are going pretty well for him when he tells Hordor to sell one of the Gutenberg Bibles they got just laying around. The Doctor and Romana get some cafe au lait from a diner when some dude sketches Romana as a clock. It's not important, but it is kinda cool. What is important is that there's a time glitch. But the Doctor's like, fuck it, we're on vacation. The Doctor takes her to the Louvre to argue about the Mona Lisa when another time slip happens. This time the Doctor faints, steals some woman's bracelet, and makes a cop suspicious. They leave, and the cop follows them for eons. But of course the Doctor notices him. The Doctor tells Romana the bracelet he stole is alien and can do all kinds of cool shit. Just then the cop guy puts his gun in the Doctor's back and wants to chat. Meanwhile, the woman the Doctor stole the bracelet from is Scarlioni's wife, and he's pretty annoyed that she had it stolen. But that shit don't matter though, she just sends her goons to get it, which they do. This Popo is actually Detective Duggan, and he's got one mode, and that brother is punch. He punches shit. It's his thing. Don't judge him, you rage shamer. He's also dumb as a box of rocks, so he'll serve as the comic relief whenever the Doctor needs someone to make fun of. The goons bring the bracelet back to Scarlioni, but now he wants to meet the Doctor, so they send Hordor out to get him while Scarlioni's mask gets a little hot, and we find out he's the Squidward thing from the very beginning. Hordor brings Team Doctor to the Scarlionis, and the best scene in the whole story happens.
I say, what a wonderful butler. He's so violent. Hello.
Romana figures out some trap box where the bracelet is, and the Doctor continues to act dumb, so Scarlioni sends them to the cell, which is directly next to where they're doing their time experiments, and of course the Doctor is interested. Hordor holds the door for them, and they get in the cell. The Doctor uses his sonic and opens the door, of course. Dum-Dum just wants to bash something, but then Wacky Scientist comes back. They chat about the experiments, See, wacky scientist thinks he's gonna save world hunger by making eggs turn into chickens faster, but the doctor points out that there's some flaws with his experiments. He reverses the polarity, but then sees Squidward in the bubble thing and freaks out, and then Hulk smashes the scientist out cold. Meanwhile, the bad guys show how they're gonna steal the Mona Lisa from the Louvre with virtual reality. Romana finds another room by the cell, so the doctor chisels into it and Dum Dum tackles it. Inside, they find 6 other Mona Lisas, all painted by Leonardo da Vinci. Squidward catches them, but Inspector Uppercut lays him out and they escape. The doctor heads back to 1505 to ask da Vinci about the paintings, but he's not there, and some other guard is, and he's got a sword, and Count Squidward is here too. Romana and Captain Crime Puncher find out that the Mona Lisa has been stolen, and for some reason, Detective Dum Dum jumps out the window to escape. Hey man, the doctor sonicked the front door here, you could just walk out. I told you, man, the guy's got one mode. Anyway, the doctor and 1500s Marquis de Squidward talk. See, he's the last of the Jaggeroth, a race that killed themselves 4 million years ago, and he's the last one. A few of them ended up on Earth back then, but then their ship exploded, and he got fractured all throughout time as different Squidwards, but also the same Squidward. Now he's gonna torture the doctor because he wants that sweet, sweet time travel knowledge. But the doctor takes a Polaroid of the guard and headbutts him. The doctor writes, "This is fake" on several canvases, but then he gets caught again and gets the thumb screws. Meanwhile, 1979 Squidward wakes up, but because he talks in his sleep, Wacky Scientist heard it, so Squidward shows him what he really wants to do, but Wacky Scientist is not cool with that. The doctor uses Squidward's mini-stroke to head on back to 1979, but unfortunately, Marquis de Squidward can tell Count Squidward about the doctor because they're the same Squidward. Romana and Officer Allfist get caught trying to break back into Squidward's place. Squidward wants Romana to help him fix the time travel machine, so he shows her how it works by inciting the most hilarious death. Goodbye, Wacky Scientist. You will be missed. I guess. Romana agrees because otherwise he'll destroy all of Paris, and he explains that he wants to go back in time and stop himself from blowing up his ship so he can save the Jaggeroth. I guess with his lineage, because why not just go back even further in time and stop the war that ended your race? It doesn't matter. He tells her to do it.
Do it. Do it.
And she does. The doctor shows up and tells Lady Squidward about the Squidward within her husband, and then he goes down to find Romana made a stabilizer for him, so Squidward locks them all up again. He goes upstairs, but Lady Squidward is onto him, so he shows her his real face and kills her dead. Squidward gets into the machine and goes back in time, so Team Doctor head back to the Louvre in the slowest way possible. And hey, look, it's John Cleese. Cool. Anyway, they chase Squidward in time, and the doctor wastes time by telling Detective Dumbass that the explosion of the Jaggeroth ship is what caused human life to evolve, so they need that ship to blow up. Unfortunately, Squidward shows up to stop himself from exploding the ship, but the Fist Whisperer knocks him right out. Squidward gets sent back. That was a lot of effort to be such a complete failure. And the doctor leaves so humans can be born by the Jaggeroth's death. Squidward materializes back in the laboratory, and Hordor gets freaked out because he's an alien and throws something at him that causes the machine to explode and burns all the Mona Lisas except for one, conveniently, but it's one of the ones that the doctor wrote on, so it's, I guess, a fake, but not really a fake because Da Vinci actually did it, but it's not the real one. This freaks Detective Iron Fist out, but the doctor and Romana don't care, so they leave. The end. Wow, that was fun. It really shouldn't have been. The story is pretty bland, but there were quite a few things that I liked. The Doctor and Romana II's relationship is fantastic. Yes, I know that Tom Baker and Lalla Ward were in love and got married not long after this, and then divorced not long after that, but not only is their chemistry on point here, it's also nice to see the Doctor interact with a companion that comes close to matching the Doctor in intellect, but also in his alien qualities. It's nice to have someone counter the Doctor's human race crush without being psychotic like the Master. And she doesn't position herself as necessarily smarter than the Doctor, just as a fresh take and thought process that isn't necessarily human. Mostly she's just logical, and a purely unemotional logical character up against the Doctor's emotions fueling his intelligence is kind of a nice change. Typically, both the Doctor and the companion approach a situation very emotionally. But a different perspective or approach is kinda nice sometimes. It's why some of us enjoyed Nardole. Sure, he wasn't alien or cyborg enough for my taste, but it was nice sometimes to see what a non-human or someone who isn't the self-proclaimed human protector thinks. Romana dissects things quickly, doesn't turn into a damsel in distress if something goes wrong, and questions the Doctor's motivations and obsession with human culture. Yeah, it's presented that she's too clinical and enjoys the AI artwork of Gallifrey, but she's still young here compared to the Doctor, so even though her logic does carry naivety, it bounces off well with the Doctor's blind love for humanity. And the subtle way she's dressed as a pupil, notice I didn't say schoolgirl pervert, helps visualize the dynamic since the Doctor is always the teacher to his companion. I'm more of a Romana II fan, so I may be biased, but I feel like this dynamic was better served than Romana I. In fact, every side character was engaging. Count Squidward was great. He was rich, sophisticated, and very evil in a polite way at the very beginning. He was kind of like a Bond villain and was super engaging. But then you find out he's a Squidward, and then the guy acts crazy and alien. But through it all, you really enjoy him. Was he a one-note villain that had very little by way of brains? Yes, but at least they sort of gave you a bit of compelling motivation as to why he's doing what he's doing. Would I have preferred they not make the Scaroth an evil race and actually added some depth to Scaroth's horrible plight being stuck here in time, wanting to save his own people? Yes, but this is Doctor Who in the 1970s, and that kind of nuance is pretty rare. So when you have a one-note villain like this, you at least need to make him interesting to watch, and they did that. But it wasn't just Squidward. Lady Squidward was just enough to be entertaining. Wacky Scientist was useless, but also entertaining. Horror was a good horror, and Detective Shipperbrains was dumb, but it felt like the actor knew that and kind of ran with it. I imagine it helps that the script editor for this episode was the same guy that wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but give a little love to the cast around Tom Baker for letting him do his thing and supporting him rather than making him work for it. I love Tom Baker in this story. Sure, everyone in the story is great, but he really carries it. Let's slow things down for a second and talk about Tom Baker. Get ready for a long love letter. I think if you distill most Doctors down to their core, you either get an old curmudgeon or a young idealist. And the age of the Doctor doesn't matter there. You either get an old curmudgeon or a young idealist. Some can be arrogant, some can be shy, some can be goofy, and some can be vanilla pudding. But the key difference in their character and how they play the Doctor is they're going to be one of those two things. Now, there are a few that were good at being both, but both Capaldi and Baker are, in my opinion, the very best at playing one of those two archetypes. See, when I think of Doctor Who, I think of one of those two actors. But for many years, I only thought of one guy, and that guy was Tom Baker. I could pay as many compliments as humanly possible on Tom Baker and fall short of what he did for the role and for the show. So the greatest compliment I think I can pay him is this. Tom Baker did not create the role of the Doctor, but the role of the Doctor became Tom Baker. And in many ways, it still is. I have immense respect for his work on the show, and yes, I know he may have gotten full of himself and became a complete ass to work with, but for those that have followed this show for a long time and have respect for the classic era, you cannot deny his impact and his presence. Look at how effortlessly he carries this episode. It's a pretty weird little sci-fi story. You got this alien that got time displaced and spread across 12 different time periods, stealing priceless artifacts to fund a time reversal machine to make himself whole again and save his doomed alien race. You got Mona Lisa copies, the aliens look like the horror version of Squidward in the live-action SpongeBob movie, time glitches, a goofy scientist stereotype. This thing could have gone off the rails quickly. But it doesn't, because Tom Baker knows it's goofy and everyone is playing it straight, so he does the opposite. He plays it like a comedy, and he's the only one that gets the joke. He is the absolute king at playing the Doctor as someone that understands how humans act, but does not give one singular about acting the same. He's going to act like he acts, which is often a buffoon smartass to throw villains off and secretly get what he wants. You know that when you watch the scene when he gets taken to the chateau for the first time, you laughed your ass off because he acts and says things that are the complete opposite of what you should say and do in this situation, and you love him for it. I've said it before, there are actors that elevate roles that they're in. We see that all the time and give awards for it. But then there are actors that not only elevate a role, but they define it in such a way that you watch because of them. My point is, I'd watch Doctor Who anyway, but when I get a Tom Baker story, I get to see a guy that elevates the role past what it is and into the stratosphere. Things I didn't like. I didn't like the outdoor Paris shots. Hey, I'm glad the BBC decided to let you guys film on location in Paris, but it sure feels like you padded your essay to get the full word count. If you think I'm being too much of a modern TV viewer and they weren't filling time too much, I went ahead and timed each one of these segments out where they were either just walking around, running around, or fucking around so that you could understand my point. Here they are. The Doctor and Romana walk around seeing the sights of Paris. 1 minute and 45 seconds. They leave the cafe and head to the Louvre. 1 minute and 21 seconds. They leave the Louvre and Detective Dum-Dum follows. 1 minute and 59 seconds. The Doctor gets back from 1503 and heads to the Louvre. 58 seconds. He leaves the Louvre. 17 seconds. They leave Squidward to go back to the TARDIS. 1 minute and 10 seconds. That is 7.5 minutes of filler, and I'm not even counting the 36-second goodbye scene by the Eiffel Tower. Seriously, every time they went outside, I rolled my eyes. Like, guys, I get that going to Paris to film a block of episodes is pretty fun, and no doubt Tom wanted to take his new girlfriend and co-star on a romantic holiday that they also got paid for. But it was excessive and really hurt the momentum of the story in places. I'm all for the outdoor shooting. Most of the time in Doctor Who, when they film outside of a set, it looks a million times better. But this was the opposite of that, and I wanted to stab my eyes out every time you showed the city because it was simply used as filler to show the cast getting from one place to another. We didn't need to see any of that. Things I didn't understand. I don't understand why you took your mask off here. Aside from the visual to end on a cliffhanger for episode 1 and reveal the true villain, from a character standpoint, it really makes no sense. You never seem to be uncomfortable in your rich white guy mask, but the second you get your bracelet back from the Doctor who stole it from you, you're like, I need to free the Squidward! And not just take the mask off and maybe take a breather, you rip that in two! And you do it clearly hearing your wife is at the door knocking and calling for you. I got questions for you too, Mrs. Scarlioni Squidward, but all of my questions surround your marriage bed, and YouTube would likely flag it even though it's totally educational, so I won't ask them. but I'm thinking them, ma'am. I'm thinking them. I don't understand why the Doctor is as cavalier as he is about killing off the Jaggeroth. Okay, I know it's only one guy and he's a dick, but he is the very last of his race. Sure, if he accomplishes his goal, the human race doesn't start or evolve or something, but you guys are always telling me how life finds a way, so I'm sure some other amoeba would have crawled out of some other muck to become life on Earth. Honestly, Doctor, you could have just taken the TARDIS back before they tried taking off and exploded and helped them fix their ship and nobody has to die. Yeah, I know that the Jaggeroth are a bunch of shitty people that, as you say, the universe won't miss, but so are the Daleks, and you wondered if you had the right. Just feels like you didn't think of a non-violent solution on this one, and it was staring you right in the face. I feel like most of the points that I make are typically nitpick in nature, but even as I'm writing the review, I'll find points rolling around in my noggin that are just so dumb and nitpicky that I throw them in Nitpick Corner! You guys just rob people in broad daylight in a crowded cafe? I'm not saying the bracelet isn't important at all, it is, but Squidward told his wife to handle this shit discreetly. She says she will, and her level of discreetly is to send two guys literally dressed like mafia posters to walk into a crowded cafe close to the Louvre, teeming with tourists, to hold three people up at gunpoint? I guess it worked out because nobody ever got arrested, even though a fucking detective is sitting at the table where you're committing your larceny at. Why did you build a holding cell next to the laboratory? Again, Count Squidward, you go on and on about how everyone needs to be discreet when doing your highly illegal and dangerous work, but if you need to keep someone prisoner, you put them right next to where your time experiments are happening? With a window in the door? Dude, I hope you fired your floor plan designer because this is a major flaw. Not to mention the fact that they're but a stone wall away from 6 fucking Mona Lisas. But could you imagine being wacky scientist over here trying to solve world hunger with time travel, but every time you tried to concentrate, Count Squidward's prisoners were watching you or shouting or throwing shit. Plus Hodor gives them a match for a light which they could have used to burn the wooden door down. Dumb planning, guys. You mean to tell me there was a Scaroth with green tape on his face and we didn't get to spend any time with him? I feel very cheated. Was this a great story? Not really. But what it was just a fun, weird sci-fi story. Quite honestly, it felt like one of those old pulp sci-fi novels. And that's cool. I imagine if any other Doctor had been the Doctor when this story aired, it would have been an extremely boring story, but you give Tom Baker a little and he gives you back a lot. And in my opinion, pairing him with a script that Douglas Adams got to tinker with is pretty great fun. Unfortunately, someone needed to show that filming in Paris was worth the investment, so we got a lot of filler shots and it brought the enjoyment down a little bit. I give City of Death a 7. As a story, it probably is a 5, but Tom Baker makes every story fun to watch. Before we go, we need to stop for a minute and appreciate Gordon D for his patience. This guy requested we do City of Death over 2 months ago, and I farted all over that and kept doing the 25th season. I mean, I have only a little over 100 subscribers. Small YouTuber is what they're gonna etch on my tombstone, and yet I had the balls to put him off for 2 months while I indulged my own flight of fancy. I am a terrible person. But Gordon D is not. The guy is actually pretty cool to know if you're a Doctor Who fan. In addition to running the Chicago Whovians, who by the way are the best Whovians because they collectively requested I review an episode. This part is for the other groups that may be watching. Chicago is kicking your ass here. You gonna let them? Are you gonna let Chicago be the best Doctor Who city? Better than yours? Request an episode. But also Gordon D is a writer and has some really interesting things to read. He also has a Patreon that you can get into for free and only pay something if you wanna. The guy is gold. I've linked to his Blue Sky account in the description, so go follow a brother. And we have received a few requests since last time. Look at us cook! So in the coming weeks, we will have a review of The Horror of Fang Rock, suggested by Stephen Cowie7151, and then we will come right back to this season and review The Creature from the Pit, suggested by Nikon Bear 7882. Get your suggestions in now because my dance card is starting to fill up and this little piggy whore wants all the dances. Also, feel free to suggest as many as you want. We need to fill time until The War Between the Land and the Sea comes out, and I focus on that instead. Otherwise, you might get another after-school special and nobody watched that. And as always, you remember that man who was following us? Well, he's standing behind me, poking salty ham in my back. And because Capaldi can act the socks off to... And because Capaldi can act... It aired at the... It aired... Meanwhile, Meanwhile, he's also dumb as a box of... The goons being... So they send Horde... But also Gordon D is a writer and has some really interesting things to... But also Gordon D is a writer and also... Scarlioni... Let me try all the fucking shit. Damn it. Scarlioner's... And we find out he's... he reverses the polarity! Sorry. And we find out he's the Squidward... Shit. Hodor holds the door for him, and they get in the cell. Look at you. I'm very proud of you for making it this far. You represent 22% of my viewers that do. Because it's just us now, I want to tell you a secret. This video that YouTube is recommending to you, it's likely good. I mean, if I made it, I'll vouch for it, but if it's something else, well, just know that YouTube has more data on you than your own government. And my friends, they kinda know you better than you know yourself. Watch this if you have time, and I'm 95% certain they're going to be showing you something that you have a mild interest in. Go have fun, and I'll see you next time with more Tom Baker.